This is Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco, 89.5 FM. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. I'm Jess Ghannam.
And this is Jamal Dajani.
Jamal, we have a great show today. There's a lot to cover. I mean, we're going to focus on the first segment of the show today. We're going to focus on the increasing bigoted, Islamophobic, and hateful reporting that's coming out of Fox News. Recently, Judge Jeanine Pirro, who appears nightly on the Fox News network, made an astonishing and outrageous comment about Representative Ilhan Omar, where she said and implied that because Ilhan Omar wore hijab, that her allegiance was not to the Constitution, but rather her allegiance was to the Quran and Sharia law. Basically implying that anybody who wears any kind of religious clothing out of, respect or out of humility, and presumably that would mean that, Christians like nuns who wear garments over their head, or people of the Jewish faith who wear coverings on their head, are also subject to this attack. And she implied that Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman duly elected, cannot be loyal to the Constitution. It was really kind of a new, in my opinion, among all the low points of Fox News. This was a new low point.
And we're going to talk about her. We're going to listen also to her own words, and also to the other bigot on Fox News.
Well, there are many, but we're just going to talk about two today.
And we're going to talk about Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson later on, and we have their sound bites. But here is some trivia, and it's actually sad trivia about Judge Jeanine Pirro. So I don't know if you knew that, but Judge Pirro is originally, her family is from Lebanon. She's Lebanese American.
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so you didn't know that. It's actually, her last name is Faris.
Oh, Faris.
Yeah, Faris. This is her last name, and she is Lebanese American. Of course, she was born in upstate New York, but her father is from Lebanon, and he was an RV salesman. So I want to first play something of her sound bites.
Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
This is one. So, of course, there were other statements. So I want us to listen to other statements. This is the one that's the most played now about
we need to kill them. We need to kill them. The radical Muslim terrorists hell-bent on killing us. You're in danger. I'm in danger. We're at war, and this is not going to stop.
So here's the incitement.
As sure as I'm talking to you, there will be efforts to limit our First Amendment, our free speech, to comply with Sharia.
She's been inciting against Muslims for years, Jess.
To those who slander the Prophet Muhammad. And when they want to shut us up, they call us Islamophobes. I've told you that you need to be afraid because they are coming for you.
It's the fear-mongering.
The ISIS assault, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria signals the beginning of the reverse crusade. They are coming for us.
Crusade.
To them, we are the infidels. My resolution? Airstrikes. Bomb them.
Bomb them.
Keep bombing them. Bomb them again and again.
This is
and
on
I don't
Fox
care
News.
How long it
I
takes.
have a whole collection.
That same FBI interviewed Mateen, the Orlando shooter, 3 times. Mateen told them that his anti-American comments were simply a response to what he perceived as anti-Muslim comments.
Okay.
He was turning the tables on us.
Anyway, this was a sampling of some of her most recent rants. She's been doing it for years, Again, sadly, she's the Lebanese American. She's been on Fox News.
She doesn't identify as Lebanese
No, she doesn't.
This is something we
the name Pirro this is her husband's, family name. But it doesn't matter because you also have another Lebanese American who calls herself last name Gabrielle, and she's actually the last name is Qahwaji, which means coffee maker. She changed that, and she's always paraded by surrogates of AIPAC to basically trash Muslims in this country and Arab Americans.
But I want to just say a few things about what Judge Pirro, Judge Ferris. I mean, there has been an amplification and there has been kind of a call out to the members of the audience of the Fox network to bomb Muslims, to kill Muslims, to go after Muslims because they're coming after you. So you're right, Jamal. This is an incitement to hurt, kill, and maim people. I mean, she's basically giving the green light to Fox listeners and whomever else is listening that she gives her blessing, her okay, to basically inflict great bodily harm. The second thing that she's doing, she's equating what is happening in Iraq and Syria with the Islamic State in the Levant. She's equating that community with Muslims all over the world. So
including Americans.
Including American Muslims.
Right.
So there's this false equivalency that all Muslims are basically ISIS sympathizers. And Jamal, let's look at who Judge Jeanine Pirro is. She has a nightly hour on the Fox News Network, Jamal. She has a platform for millions of people on what is considered mainstream media. And this level of hate, this level of hate-mongering and fear-mongering occurs every single night. It's very disturbing.
And I want to come back to her because also I wanted to play then
what she said about Ilhan?
Well, no, we played that first, she said about Ilhan, but also now I want to move on to, because I want to talk, about Fox and their history of Islamophobia, racism against Arabs and of course, in this country, and immigrants and minorities. But also, they have a pattern. And the question is, Jess, and we've seen kind of the downfall of some of their most vocal critics, like before Sean Hannity, who was the star there.
Oh, it was Bill O'Reilly.
So O'Reilly downfall did not come because of his daily attacks against Muslims and racism.
No.
It was because he got caught more than once with sexual harassment at the station, and was accused by employees.
Roger Ailes. Another one.
It's another one. But when it comes to racism and Islamophobia, when it comes also, and then we can also talk about other shows, when it comes to that, they both have jobs. Tucker Carlson is acting now like as if he is the victim. If you heard him, he was saying, I'm being harangued by the media and phone calls after something came up because something I've said about 10 years ago. Well,
so what?
They go after people for sexual harassment that went on for more than 20 years. Or the Vatican is under fire because of all the rapes and things like this for many, many years.
As they should.
So he's now acting as the victim. And again, he has a history, and this is actually very strong words here that we are going to be playing, but these are his words. Tucker Carlson,
who has a nightly show on the Fox News Network.
But I have to say, again, we've heard
Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of semi-literate primitive monkeys. But I just have zero sympathy for them or their culture, a culture where people just don't use toilet paper or forks.
And the way they treat women, I agree with you. Their culture is, but you're in their homeland. And you're over there as an American who they hate, and they want nothing more than the Americans off of their soil. So they're not going to play games.
They can just shut the fuck up and obey, is my view.
How could you salvage Iraq at this point?
I don't, it's beyond our control. I mean, if somehow the Iraqis decided to behave like human beings or something, he'd need to say, look, I'm a bigot, okay? I'm a bigot. I don't like Islamic extremists. Like, if you are really heavily into Islam, I'm sorry, I don't care for you that much. And I don't care what that sounds like. You can call me a racist. You can tell me what you want.
Okay, you are a racist, Tucker Carlson.
You certainly could. I'd vote for you if you said that. White men have, they've contributed some, I would say, like creating civilization and stuff. I think they've done a pretty, I don't know, whatever.
Obama would kick your ass playing basketball.
Yeah, of course he would. Play basketball? Come on.
He's black. Say it. He's a real brother. Hey, do you think?
I don't know how black he is. How is he black? For one thing, he has one white parent, one black parent.
Well,
so that makes him. Why isn't he white?
There's some really good.
So anyway, you can listen to Tucker Carlson. There is a whole now recording. I'll put it online when we post our show online on SoundCloud. A link to it, Jess. But in like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, he, calls Iraqis monkeys and uncivilized. They can't use a fork. They don't have toilet paper. He also has a whole rant about women, including a minor. He goes after African Americans, including Barack Obama.
Right.
I mean, this guy is a major racist, and he is proud of it. He brags about it.
No, and he says, Jamal, let's be clear about what he says. On the clip that you played, he says, call me a bigot. I don't care. Being proud of it. Proud of being a bigot. And yet he, like Judge Pirro on Fox News, is given free access. Well, maybe not free, but is given access 1 hour every single day on a major news network that is distributed to tens of millions of people every single night. So my question to you, Jamal, is this number one? Is this a double standard? I mean, number one, here you have two major figures in the Fox News network on a regular basis who are spewing hate and incitement, being paid for it, getting away with it. And so my question to you is this a double standard? And what's going on at Fox?
I mean, obviously, it is a major double standard, and that's why when I was talking about the firing of O'Reilly, before, Tucker Carlson came to the scene, even before Sean Hannity.
Right.
He has been, for years, attacking Arab and Muslims and going after them, and no one raised a finger.
Never.
He never apologized, including, by the way, while he was going through all his sexual harassment, he fought it to the last minute until he couldn't fight it anymore because the evidence was piling up.
Overwhelming.
And it was recorded by one of his accusers, his phone conversations with her, that they had to get rid of him and pay him millions of dollars, by the way. He did, to finish his contract. Right. And similarly, you watch, Tucker Carlson day after day, night after night. He is and Judge Pirro. They're going after Arabs and Muslims in this country. They were going after Barack Obama because he's African American, and always they were saying Barack Hussein Obama when they used to speak about him to insinuate that he remains still a
secretly a Muslim.
Secretly a Muslim.
It's a big secret.
And again, no one said anything. They've been getting away with this for many, many years. And now the most recent thing, because, of course, with Judge Pirro, because of Ilhan Omar, and God forbid that she was able to speak and criticize the Israel lobby in this country and the work of AIPAC. And everyone now, all of a sudden, is against her because and calling her basically an anti-Semite, which was totally false.
But we're going to come back to that, Jamal, about the attacks on Ilhan Omar. I want to go back to the implications for a minute about what it actually means that a TV newscaster, I'm resisting using the word journalist because it's painful to call Judge Pirro a journalist. It really is. An opinionist or whatever you want to call her, had the audacity to say that Ilhan Omar was not faithful to the Constitution because she wears the hijab, that secretly she's faithful to Sharia law, not to the Constitution because of something that she wears out of her commitment to her faith. It has nothing to do with her commitment to the Constitution.
Well, like the thousands of Jewish Americans who wear the yarmulke or nuns from the Catholic faith.
So my question is, why isn't she attacking people of the Jewish faith who wear
Because she's an Islamophobe and she's a racist.
And why isn't she attacking nuns who wear the habit?
Well, you said that the hypocrisy reeks at Fox News.
But they get away with it, and this is something that I want to speak to, because apparently, I don't know about Judge Pirro, but apparently with Tucker Carlson, maybe it has been with Judge Pirro's show also. Apparently, some of the people who have been advertising on these shows have begun to pull back on some of their advertisement dollars. And this may be why Tucker Carlson is so outraged. And of course, we know how bigots like to act, Jamal. Once they are held to account, they want to play the victim role. And this is what Tucker Carlson is doing. I don't know what Judge Pirro is doing, but Tucker Carlson is now doing that, claiming that he is somehow being victimized because he's a racist and because he's a bigot.
Admitted racist.
Admitted. He's proud. He proudly says, I'm a bigot. Call me a bigot. I'm proud of it. And now that he's held to account in some way, he's feeling victimized. By the way, this is the same Tucker Carlson who attacked children who were part of the school massacre in Florida, and attacking them for coming out, for thoughtful, reasonable gun control. So it's part of this larger pattern, Jamal, at Fox News.
Well, I mean, in the tapes that we listened to earlier, Carlson makes, and this was a sampling. I'll post a link to the full, sound bites on our website later on. But it's a sampling of a series of sexist, misogynist, and cruel remarks. And he also, because we didn't hear that part, he talks about a young woman who was a contestant in a 2007 Miss Teen USA competition. We didn't get to listen to that. This is from an unearthed audio, basically. And he jokes about having sex with her, basically a teenage beauty pageant contestant in the tapes with the host who was interviewing him. So they've been, Media Matters, by the way, is the organization that has been unearthing all these tapes.
But Jamal, why do you say unearthing? This is why.
Well, because
this is why
we have short memory in this country.
Exactly, and so are we to say that just because he said it 10 years ago that?
Well, this is what he
should be held accountable.
This is what he's claiming, and of course we know that the GOP went like crazy after Bill Clinton for all his actions from many years before Lewinsky, right?
Right.
So we know it doesn't matter when you have these heinous acts of racism and misogyny and rape and what have you. You're not going to get a free pass. However, Tucker Carlson feels that he should get a free pass because it was a few years ago.
Well, I have breaking news for Tucker Carlson. There's no statute of limitations on hate. There's no statute of limitations on racism, and there's no statute of limitations on misogyny.
And here's another trivia about Tucker Carlson. Like I gave it for our listeners who were listening before when we talked about Jeanine Pirro. Sadly, she's the daughter of Nasser Faris, who's a Lebanese immigrant. She was born in New York, so she's Lebanese American, the daughter of Nasser Faris, who was an RV salesman in upstate New York. The other trivia about Tucker Carlson is that he was born in San Francisco.
Tucker
Right
Carlson
here
was
where
born in
we're,
San Fran-
yes, right
I didn't know
where
that.
we are broadcasting, sadly.
That is sad.
Sadly, again, he is originally from the Bay Area. He was born here. Later on, his father moved to La Jolla, so he grew up in a very wealthy very wealthy community of La Jolla in Southern California. But he actually was born here, and his dad. When he moved there, this was his stepmom. He married the daughter or the heiress, I should say, of the Swanson Food family. So he comes from a lot of wealth,
Okay, and privilege. So
then he thinks
he's above the law.
Iraqis are monkeys.
Right.
And that
women can be raped.
And women that can be raped
sexually assaulted.
Attacked African Americans, mocks them, and so on. And he's still on. He still has a show.
So my question, Jamal, is why isn't the FBI onto Jeanine Pirro, Judge Pirro, for incitement to violence, for calling for the bombing and the killing of Muslims? Why isn't the FBI?
This is the trick, because she's smart. She didn't call for the killing of Muslims in this country, so she was insinuating. She was calling for the bombing of Iraqis, calling for the bombing of ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, and of course in the Middle East, because they're evil and so on. But we know for a fact that whenever we are engaged in a conflict against whether Arab countries, Muslim Americans get targeted in this country. So she was in the way, she was attacking, Muslims there. She knew that this has a repercussion because, she's an intelligent, supposedly lady. She went to law school. She knows the power of her words. She knows the power of incitement, and she was inciting. And then she took it a step further, because she has never applied this language against any congressman or congresswoman, with the first female Muslim woman and Somali refugee who happens also to be African. Right. She puts it all together, and she thought that was a great target for her, for her audience of those who are racist against Africans and African Americans, people of color, racist against Muslims, and so on. So that was to her an easy target to basically hitch her wagon to that whole movement of Islamophobia, and hitch her wagon to those who were calling Ilhan Omar an anti-Semite, right. And also criticizing Israel. So she became now the defender of the state of Israel.
Well, Jamal, that's a good segue for the next segment here that I want to bring up. Yes, Jeanine Pirro, Tucker Carlson, Fox News, the Democrats, the establishment in Washington have all come to the defense of Israel because of the audacity of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar having the audacity to question the power of the AIPAC lobby in terms of its mission and whether or not it actually serves the United States. There was, as we have reported here, an eruption of attacks on Ilhan Omar. There were accusations of anti-Semitism and racism. But look at what happened this week from the Prime Minister of Israel, Jamal. So if we want to talk about hate and racism and bigotry, let's look at what Benjamin Netanyahu said this week.
I haven't seen Chuck Schumer. I haven't seen all these congressmen and congresswomen.
Where is Fox News
attacking Benjamin Netanyahu basically for...
And Benjamin Netanyahu says that the state of Israel is for Jews only. So, Benjamin Netanyahu, have a little breaking news for you. You may not have realized this, but more than 25% of the citizens of the state of Israel are not Jewish. They happen to be Muslim, they happen to be Christian, they happen to be atheists, they happen to be Baha'i faith, they happen to be of multiple faiths. So here we are going down and undying support for the, quote, state of Israel, when the state of Israel, its leader comes out and says, Israel is a state for the Jewish people only, which is on its face racist, exclusionatory.
And we haven't heard a single condemnation from these
but
Congress
Jamal,
people.
that's my question to you.
And he took it, basically, I just want to add to it, he
took it further.
He took it further. Number one, of course, they passed the law, which now the entire universe, not the entire world, they know about this law, the nation-state law, that this is a state for the Jewish people.
Only.
It's in the books, which is basically not any different than Jim Crow, basically.
No,
this is what it says.
It's actually worse than Jim Crow.
And so what they've been talking about for the past 6 decades or more, they've codified it by now having it as a law. So then, because of the elections now, and same story, Benjamin Netanyahu is appealing to his base, which is comprised of mostly settlers, 800,000 plus illegal settlers living in the West Bank on stolen Palestinian land. He took it further. So this is from something he said a couple of days ago. Again, Benjamin Netanyahu, a.k.a. Milkowitsky.
Benjamin Milkowitsky.
This is his family name. His father immigrated from Poland. And this is what he said. He said because he's now attacking Palestinians, or what Israel refers to as Arab Israelis. He's attacking them because they've been criticizing his law, including, by the way, the Druze, who were shocked because they thought they were loyal servants to the state.
They serve in the military.
They serve in the military.
And I guess they're not citizens.
So he's coming under a lot of criticism, and he's basically telling them to Arabs have 22 countries. They should move to the Arab countries. So he's saying Arab citizens, meaning, of course, Palestinians, have 22 nation states around them, and they do not need another one. So they do not need a Palestinian state. This is someone whose father immigrated from Poland, basically.
So, Jamal,
saying to the indigenous Palestinians who lived there for centuries that they should leave. So he cannot be more specific than this, than even passing the law, than any kind of hint or insinuation that he's making it clear that if you're not Jewish,
you're gone.
You're not welcome.
You're not welcome
in the
here.
state. You're not an equal citizen.
You're not an equal citizen. You're not welcome here. But let's go back to this, Jamal. When Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of the state of Israel, comes out and makes such a bigoted, hateful, racist statement, basically condemning more than 25% of the citizens of the state of Israel to not even any status, that they're not even welcome, that they need to leave. And there's not a peep from the Congress. They spent weeks. Israel is our friend. Israel is our strongest
Which, by
ally.
the way, we're around the corner from AIPAC's conference in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And it will be very interesting to see all these surrogates at the U.S. Congress falling and fawning over AIPAC and the state of Israel.
But nothing, Jamal, nothing in the media, nothing on radio, nothing on TV, nothing even on what we would call progressive stations, and I'm going to keep calling out MSNBC for their lack of integrity and lack of reporting as the so-called progressive news network or liberal news network, for completely ignoring the fact that you have the leader of a state calling for racist, exclusionary laws to be implemented, and basically, saying tough luck.
Well, it's not even this, but if you actually mention this, like we're talking about it,
you'll be called an anti-Semite.
Exactly. They'll go after you.
So if we condemn Benjamin Netanyahu's racism, we get called an anti-Semite.
Yes, and this is exactly what happened to Ilhan Omar. She was and I have to say she wasn't the first, because for those who read from our listeners, and I hope you read,
they do.
All what you have to do is go and Google "They Dare to Speak Out."
Right.
And this is the book by
Congressman Finley.
Congressman Finley.
Right.
This book was written in the 80s, maybe earlier.
Maybe even earlier, but I think you're right.
And he talks about his experience that when he criticized Israel, how AIPAC went after him with vengeance and basically got rid of him.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, Jamal, because I just read a report today. Now, Congresswoman Omar has been in her position for 2 months, and already the Jewish Community Relations Council in Minnesota is looking for people to primary her. Primary her means finding a Democrat
to challenge her
in one of the most progressive districts in the entire United States, because she had the courage. I'm not even going to say the audacity anymore. She had the courage to question the role of unlimited funding of that AIPAC uses to support their strategic interests. And basically what Ilhan Omar is saying, Jamal, and it's everything that we have been saying forever, is why can't we in the United States have a discussion about the role of AIPAC and the strategic relationship with Israel and whether or not it really suits the United States' interest? Why can't we talk about it? And when she says that, when Congresswoman Omar says that, she gets labeled as an anti-Semite. She gets labeled by Judge Jeanine Pirro as not being loyal to the Constitution, as being a secret adherent to Sharia law. This is what you get, Jamal. And this is why what Ilhan Omar is doing and what Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib are doing in Congress right now is so important and so valuable. You're listening to KPOO in San Francisco. We're at 89.5 FM. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. We're streaming live on Facebook Live at Jamal Dajani 2. You can listen to us at 89.5 FM. We're also streaming live on the KPOO website, where you can stream us anywhere in the world at kpoo.com. So, Jamal, Benjamin Netanyahu, not a peep.
Not a peep.
Let me just say something.
And let me just add just few things, okay, because this will add to the understanding of about this policy of giving Israel basically a wink and a nod.
A free pass.
When it comes to abusing Palestinian rights, when it comes to establishing its apartheid policies all over, when it comes to its occupation, when it comes to violating the Fourth Geneva Convention and transferring its population into occupied territories like the 800,000 plus settler. But recently, they were given an additional pass. Well, we know about, of course, the extra gift that the Trump administration gave them by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But something that has not been covered too much in the news, Jess, officially, this is unofficial, the State Department has removed the word occupation.
I saw that.
From Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights, and of course that also applies to the West Bank, and they moved it into Israeli control. So now the State Department, which for decades referred to the Golan Heights as occupied by Israel and has never, not only the United States, the United Nations and the international community, this is a precursor, right? They're giving them the green light. Just 2 days ago, the State Department, they've given an order to remove the word occupation from the Golan Heights and to refer to the Golan Heights or the Syrian-occupied Golan Heights as Israeli-controlled territory.
Unbelievable, Jamal.
So when we talk about even in the midst of this awakening, which I think also this is going to backlash against those surrogates of Israel in Congress, because even this whole thing, and including the attacks and the unjust attacks against Ilhan Omar, it's going to come back, to haunt them. That even during all of this, they violate all international law standards, They violate the Geneva Convention. They violate all the resolutions that you have at the United Nations and say, look,
almost on a
this
daily
is this
basis,
is not
yeah.
occupied anymore. So
Right.
so they're giving basically a wink and a nod, to Israel to basically annex, which it did annex it, but to basically
Well, what they're trying
recognizing
what they're trying to do,
is its
Jamal,
annexation.
right? They're paving the way for Israel to announce an annexation of the illegal occupation of the Golan Heights, which is just a half a step away from recognizing the illegal occupation of Palestinian land. By the way, last week they also closed, or maybe it was the week before, the American consulate office in Jerusalem for Palestinians. That also got closed. So Palestinians had a place to go to in Jerusalem if they needed to find an address.
Which, by the way, that consulate was open something like in 1870 something.
1870,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, during the Ottoman Empire, and visas issued to Palestinian immigrants or people from that area, including people who lived in Jordan. They used to come to Jerusalem.
Right.
Well, many people don't know that the first consulate in Jerusalem was inside the old city.
Right.
Not the one that they closed in the Mamilla. So the first one that they've had there was right inside of Jaffa Gate.
Wow.
Right there in the old city. And this was during that period. And then it moved to the Mamilla one, and then later on, after 1948, they opened another one on Nablus Road by the YMCA in the eastern part. So they had two buildings, and then, of course, the one that they've had the one that they closed was open since the British mandate.
That's right.
And now
so my question,
it's gone.
So Jamal, where do Palestinians go now if they want to get their visas?
Well, they'll have to go to the U.S., which is now the official U.S. embassy in Jerusalem.
But how are they going to get there if they're not allowed to come in?
Well, that's the problem for the ones this is the problem for the ones who are not permitted, Palestinian Americans who live in Ramallah, Nablus, etc.,
who want to come in
and who are not allowed to enter
right.
Jerusalem. They cannot. So I heard, has not been confirmed, they might be able to do that through the Canadian mission in Ramallah. So they'll have, like, I guess, a representative that they'll go to. So they'll bring their passports and so forth. But officially, this has been closed.
But Jamal, isn't this part of a larger picture? Hypocrisy doesn't cover it anymore when we use that word to describe it. The level of abuse that Ilhan Omar took from just saying, why can't we have a discussion about U.S. foreign policy? She was viciously attacked.
Yes, she was.
And you know what people are saying, what people love to say, Israel is the only issue that is nonpartisan, Jamal.
Well,
I
have a worse statement. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and that's why we support Israel. This is the argument. I mean,
really,
what more do you need than the Prime Minister of Israel telling you straight up, that this is a state for the Jews? If you're not Jewish, you don't belong there.
What kind of democracy is that?
How much do you need? How much evidence? Even under apartheid South Africa, the Afrikaners never made that kind of blatant statement.
They worked that way, but they
tried to whitewash it.
Right.
And Israel has been whitewashing, pinkwashing its crimes, etc., for decades. But now they're just outright, because they feel emboldened, the Israeli government under Netanyahu, and seeing Donald Trump in the White House, they feel emboldened to tell you, no, this is the state for the Jews only. Arabs have 22
countries
states
to go to,
or 22 countries to go to.
So you might think, Jamal, that after a statement from a leader of a country that is so racially divisive and racist and immoral and kind of exclusionary, if it were coming from President Macron in France, if President Macron in France said, only Christians are welcomed in the state of France, what would happen? I mean, there would be...
I wouldn't use President Macron because he's also violates the French freedom of speech, by the way, by also now coming with laws which will penalize criticism of or criticism of the state of Israel, but also which conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
Okay, so
Macron, I would say, he's a bad example.
Okay, then how
and which, by the way, just quickly to say, I mean, more broadly, this is when it comes to the villainizing, I guess, critics with the false claims of anti-Semitism. This is happening in this country when you have the pro-Israel lobbying groups, considerable political influence, which they deny, has even pushed Congress to push bills punishing Americans who support Palestinian rights. Around, as we've talked about it in the past, around
Quite
half of all the states already have such laws.
Anti-BDS laws, right.
France leads the way in the vilification of the anti-BDS movement.
Okay, so I take back my...
And into the conflating Zionism with Judaism, and then, of course, accusing people who criticize the Zionists as being anti-Semitic.
I take the example of Emmanuel Macron back. What about Prime Minister Theresa May of the United Kingdom coming out and saying the United Kingdom is only for people who are Christian?
Well, they can. I mean, we know, including in this country. In this country, you have the separation of church, right?
I don't know anymore.
It doesn't mean people follow it. Listening to some of these evangelists in Congress.
I'm not sure.
And the attacks on Ilhan Omar. And by the way, this is not a coincidence.
No.
This is not attacking her because she's like the first person to criticize Israel or to criticize AIPAC or criticize the excessive financial U.S. aid to Israel when you compare it to the rest of the world. But I believe the fact that she is Muslim, the fact that she is African, the fact that she is a woman, the fact that she is from Somalia, it just brought the worst out of these bigots to target her,
right?
Because they thought, they're playing to their audience. They're getting all the praises and the claps from their audience. This is what, when we talk about, Jeanine Pirro, she's not talking to you and me. She's talking to her bigoted.
I think she is talking to
she's attacking us. She's attacking us.
I think she is talking to us.
But she's not talking to us. She's attacking us. But she's talking to her audience of bigots and Islamophobes. And she works for a network that gives her a carte blanche to do so.
Well, I'm just hoping that the FBI will take some of her comments much more seriously, Jamal. We only have a few more minutes left, and I want to bring up something that's kind of on the horizon for us to think about. Today, Pitzer College, which is one of the Claremont colleges down in SoCal, is taking a vote today, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. Claremont colleges are among the more progressive. It's a progressive group of colleges in the Claremont College system. And for years, they've had a program of study abroad. The study abroad program in Israel, I put that in quotes, allowed students to travel and go to, the 48 side, to go to Israel and study abroad, but didn't allow them to go to Palestinian universities or Palestinian colleges and study abroad. Well, the faculty are taking a vote today, and they're taking a vote that basically says this exclusion of the study abroad program that doesn't allow equal access of students to all universities in historic Palestine unless there's equality and equity among all universities in historic Palestine. They're going to vote today to basically cancel that study abroad program because of its racist, exclusionary stance towards the study abroad. That vote is going to happen today, Jamal. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Because what has been happening in the academy, we know, has been a very strong push for condemning academics who have had who have supported the BDS.
Well, I mean, look at all the hell that Dr. Rabab Abdel Hadi has been put.
Professor Hatem Bezian, who we had last week.
But I'm mentioning Dr. Rabab Abdel Hadi because she also has an MOU or Memorandum of Understanding with An-Najah University
in Palestine
to bring students from San Francisco State University to go to. And they give her hell, and she comes under attack and letters and emails targeting the San Francisco State University administration, telling them that she's taking students to a terrorist university. You know, An-Najah, one of the
it's a
premium,
it's a
Palestinian universities. They just go to An-Najah and Birzeit, basically, and Al-Quds universities.
Yeah. Which are really outstanding.
They have medical schools, they have engineering schools, and so forth. So obviously there is a systematic plan just to kind of vilify academics from having any kind of exchanges with Palestinians, here and abroad.
That's exactly right, Jamal. And so that's why I think this vote at Pitzer College is going to be very, very interesting. And we'll be reporting on it, I'm sure, as time goes on.
I thought when you started talking about colleges, I thought you were going to talk about all the wasta, American wasta. So for our listeners,
what's wasta, Jamal?
For our listeners who know Arabic, wasta is basically having a connection.
This is beyond a connection, Jamal.
So this is, I call it the American wasta, because people who know this word, they try to say, in the Middle East you need a wasta to get a passport issued to you to do this. But this is bigger.
This
worse. Makes wasta a very benign thing. It's a whole industry. And who's behind it? This guy Singer? What's his first name?
Singer. I think Marty Singer.
Yeah, Martin Singer. So you have this huge wasta, man.
But let's look at this.
Getting the children of the famous and rich into premier colleges when these guys probably wouldn't get admittance at a city, local maybe city college.
Well, let's not
not that, but I'm just saying grade wise.
Let's not throw dispersions.
No, but
on city college.
Money talks. They're paying a lot of money.
But this is different, Jamal.
And taking the seats from students, hard-working students, A students who get denied because they basically occupy their seats in these schools.
This guy, Martin Singer.
My dad didn't pay my, when I went to college. Your father didn't have a connection with him or the money to get us into college.
There isn't the Ganem wing of the medical school at the University of Michigan. No, this did not happen. Well, Jamal, this is different than any other kind of illegal scam that we've ever seen, because what this
guy...
this
is the tip of the iceberg,
It is the tip. What Marty Singer did, basically, over the course of 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, is basically take $25 million from extremely wealthy people and got people to take the SAT score for their kids.
Paid off coaches
to give kids with no athletic ability seats and admission seats on athletic teams. I mean, the level of depravity, the level of illegality, the level of entitlement with these families to think that they could do this is an extension, Jamal, of the already well-known technique of donating millions of dollars to a university, a.k.a. Kushner's father, who donated to Harvard to get Jared Kushner.
That's right. $2.5 million. Now we know that his father paid Harvard
$2.5 million.
To get him admitted there. Well, of course, they don't say this was to get him admitted there, but it coincided
with his admission.
I
mean, the father had never given money to Harvard
and
before.
we know, of course, Donald Trump has sued his university and his high school. He has
his private high school,
basically
his college, and
putting
his
them on
school.
notice that they'll be sued if they released his grades.
Well, this is part of, when people get angry at entitled rich people for whatever reason, $1 trillion tax breaks, taking advantage of the system.
I call it American wasta. You don't like that, but this is,
Jamal, it's
ladies and gentlemen,
it's beyond wasta.
It is, as I said, it has exceeded the wasta.
Oh my God!
This is the American wasta. For those who argue, which is a sad way, that you come and you work hard here. This is how you make it here, and this still applies, and it's true. You have to work very hard here, especially as an immigrant. But then there are those who have the wasta, who get in, they get jobs, and they get admittance in colleges, and
but I think you're
Hollywood actors, and so on.
But I think you're right about one thing, Jamal. We have already in the last 24 hours 2 class action lawsuits by students, I think a couple of students from Stanford who are suing, saying two things.
Imagine you know, for one particular class, they take 200 students and you're number 201.
You're not going to get in.
And you're number 201 because of your work, and then they allowed 5 people ahead of you because they had the wasta.
Yeah, exactly. Well, these students at Stanford are saying a couple of interesting things.
They're justified in suing.
Yeah, well, they're already at Stanford, but what they're saying is that the value of their education has been diminished by this illegality of letting people come in because they're paying through the side door to get in somehow.
So how many more than the famous? Now we just see Singer, who was the guy behind it,
right?
And then the 2 famous actors.
Yeah,
actresses.
Huffman, Felicity Huffman, and Loughlin from Full House.
Yeah, that's because they have name recognition, but you know you have hundreds of others who we don't know about.
It's probably thousands, and kind of sadly, if you look at the daughter of one of the actresses who got into USC through the side door, when they tried to find her, she was on a boat in the Bahamas, and the boat happened to be of the president of the trustees of USC. So instead of being at school, I don't know, maybe it's...
I didn't see this one, but I saw one who was admitting, I guess on Facebook or one of her social media sites, saying, you know, I'm not a good student, I'm a party girl, blah, blah, blah. And then again, she got on a academic scholarship.
Well, go figure. We're going to be following all these stories. Hey, thank you for listening to us. You've been listening to Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco, 89.5
And don't forget
FM.
to follow us right on iTunes, and go to our ArabTalkRadio.com so you could sign up to all of our archives.
Okay, we'll see you next week.